Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Muizzuddin Bin Kamarodin.
My name is Muhammad Hafiz bin Ripa.
My name is Muhammad Fikri Haikal bin Hamid.
My name is Aimi Nabila Binti Arba'in. Okay, today we will like to present about the topic of leisure need, theory of freedom and leisure. In this chapter, we will cover about the perceived freedom of control in life and in leisure. Number 2, theory of freedom and control and their implication for leisure. Number 3, the limitation of freedom and politic of control. And lastly is a summary. So we'll begin with the first slide, which is perceived freedom in life and leisure. Have you heard about perceived freedom? I'm sure all of us have been heard about perceived freedom, but we don't know the meaning, right? So this slide interpret that the meaning from Newlinger in 1981, which is perceived freedom is a state in which the person feels that what he or she is doing is done by choice and because one wants to do it. This sentence means that when somebody tell us to do that activity, they know the good stakes for us, they know the benefits that we can get from that activity. So this is the commonly or generally meaning from the Newlinger. And also Newlinger also state that freedom is complex phenomenon that include political, social and physiological dimension. So basically freedom can be anywhere, which is include political, social and philosophical dimension. Okay, next. One of the most important component is the subjective experience and perception of acting voluntarily. So let me give you an example. When a mother tell their children that they need to go outside at the park, so basically the mom knows that what is the good for their children, means that rather than watch television all day, they must go outside the park to build their self-esteem or their skill, their development. So it is good for them to go outside rather than watch television all day. The next slide. So this slide basically a theoretical from Newlinger about the children and their parents. So the children behavior and their reaction in the hypothetical situation, the situation that go outside the park and have been told by their parents, and the strategy for parents to deal with them involve around the importance of having choice and feeling in control. So the situation that the mom told their children to tell their children to go outside and play nearby the park, this is because to develop their skills. So this is play roles of important in their choice. They may refuse the order that have been given by their parents. So on the first point, students will restrict their choice by their parents, and then it may result the individual, which is the parents, feel that they have a little control and prevent from feeling that they are cause of origin of their own behavior. So the parents play their roles to educate their children to be a good person. So they may have feeling of control to control their children to be a good person, to develop for their development. And the self-determination is reflected in children's resistance to do what they are told to, and their response to the request. So when the parents told them to do that, what is their reaction on how their response to the parents' responses, and how this can build their respect in their parents. On the third slide, we have the specific meaning of perceived freedom, which is decision freedom. Decision freedom means that the decision by oneself to do any activity, which means that equated with free choice, which is some individuals have their choice to do many leisure activity. which they suggest the idea to have leisure. So they find some interesting activity that satisfy them with that activity. Next is people must perceive the social setting provide more than one opportunity for action. So when they decide to do many of leisure activity, which is the individual know what is the best for them, what is suitable for them, which means that when they do many activity, they can know what they have interest. For example, they hiking, they go to swimming to release their stress. So they go to many leisure activity to find what is suitable and what they have interest to do that activity. Alright, we go to the next slide, which is specific freedom in specific of free time. So the first point is people only feel relatively free or free within a certain limit. So usually people will free up their time by spending their time into the leisure activity. It may be allow them of many factors of constraint, for example, of financial, availability of friends, and also recreational skills. So we find our friends to make something enjoyable, to talk our problem, to share our problem, and so on, to build up the self-relaxing. Alright, next is some constraints allow them to happen, like I said earlier, such as the rules of the game that limit freedom and make the game possible and enjoyable. So I take the example such as when we play tennis with our friends without following the actual rules, it can make the situation is more enjoyable and have fun with our friend. We can make the funny movement with them and so on. So basically, leisure is a term of freedom. So with the term of freedom, we can do many things that we can satisfy ourselves to be a better person for the next day and increase the productivity of our work. So regardless of some question, for example, is freedom is important in our life? What are the influence of this freedom in our life? So regardless of this question, the study demonstrate by the graph. Nicely demonstrate by the study which is frequency which daily activity are voluntarily chosen. By this bar graph is study from the Chicago on the worker of men and women. So they ask the respondent to record the main activity that they have been engaged and how free they would like to participate the activity. So we look into the graph. So we can see there are 7 activities that have been engaged for the Chicago, the study from the Chicago, which means the paid work is only 15%. It's only experienced as the voluntarily activity. So we can see the sports and game achieve the high percentage, which is 90% most of the time. So in this we can see in the graph, basically leisure activity were experienced which much more frequently are freely chosen. So people are freely choose their activity to cheer up their life, to have a better condition of their life. Alright, now we go to the meaning of control. So control is the variety of terms, identity, the human desire of freedom and control. So we have variety of identity of human desire. For example, they control in many situations. So we move to the next point, which is the theory have been proposed suggesting that a sense of freedom or control is fundamental, need and essential to health and well-being. So in this slide, the theory agree that people engage in leisure activity is for health and their well-being. So most of the time, people will choose the activity based on their health and well-being, for their cheerfulness of our life, and so on. And next, based on Fix in 2004, control is one of the core social needs. What it means that we control the situation is one of the major things in our life. Alright, next, people are all motivated by the desire to be master in their own faith. So basically, this is a general meaning for us to be a better person. So we know ourselves and we want to upgrade ourselves to be the better person in one of the day. Next, number 5, in fact, exercising control is satisfying in itself. So everybody wants to do something with the result of satisfying ourselves. Alright, okay, next, lastly is having a sense of control has a definite and positive role in sustaining life. So when we satisfy with what we have done, it can lead to the positive life and sustaining life.
So today I would like to explain about theories of freedom and control and their implication for leisure. So for the first slide, I will talk about psychological reluctance and substitutability. For the meaning, if perceived, freedom and control are so important, it should come as no surprise that a threat to or the elimination of freedom can have negative psychological consequences. Okay, in psychological reluctance and substitutability, they use another terms which is the reverse psychology. For example, we are getting kids to play outside in spite of their other inclinations. So, what is psychological reluctance? According to Graham, 1966, a threat to or loss of freedom generates a state of motivational arousal, which means individuals have a set of specific behavioral freedom, including the actions, thoughts, and feelings. But according to Driscoll, Davis, Lippert's 1972, the more interference in a romantic relationship there was by parents, the more in love the couple were. Which means it is if people are coerced into engaging in an activity, it can reduce its attractiveness. Okay, I would like to give some example. For example, 16-year-old Rachel's parents restrict her from going out with certain friends because of their reputations for getting into trouble. How strongly she will react depends on several factors according to reluctance theory. First, the more she has learned to expect to have this particular freedom, the more psychological reluctance will be experienced as a result of the threat to or elimination of it. Rachel will experience greater reluctance if she has been with these friends regularly rather than only occasionally. Second, her reaction to the threat or to the actual elimination of this behavioral freedom is stronger if this freedom is perceived as important. She is likely to experience greater psychological reluctance if these friends are a major source of approval and relatedness for her. Third, if her parents forbid any involvement with these friends, she will experience greater reluctance than if they identify specific activities to avoid. Finally, if the threat to this freedom is likely to negatively impact on her other activities, then reluctance will be greater than if there was no such impact. In other words, psychological reluctance will be greater if socializations with these particular friends is also the primary context for involvement in a variety of other leisure activities. Okay, so we proceed to substitutability. What is substitutability? According to ISO Ahola 1988, person with wide variety of leisure skills is much better equipped to handle threats to recreational freedom, which means subsequently expanded this idea into the theory of substitutability and suggested that people will be less willing to replace one leisure activity to another when the external pressure for substitution of leisure behaviors gives rise to psychological reactions. Okay, the example for substitutability is like if you want to play football in the evening but it was raining, but you can change your leisure time to do something that indoor. Okay, for the last slide is learn helplessness. According to Abramson, Garber and Seligman 1980 and others, which is Witt and Ellis 1985, learn helplessness is if perceived freedom occupies one end of a continuum, then learn helplessness, a phenomenon in which experience with uncontrollable events creates passive behavior towards subsequent threats to well-being, which means they want to teach disabled people as safe as normal. Okay, learn helplessness theory also helps in understanding the psychological challenge that institutionalized older adults and people with disabilities may face in enjoying meaningful leisure, according to Dattilo and Kleber 1993, Iso Ahola 1988, McNeil and Teague 1987. Both the disability itself and other people's reaction to it may lead persons with disabilities to perceive themselves to be helpless. This theory also let people learn to deal with failure by using a variety of psychological strategies and consequently avoid developing feelings of learned helplessness. If one watch children who play on losing team, it can be seen that they often are able to focus on their own personal success and skill development and attribute the failure to the team as a whole or to other players. Effective coaching might also take the direction of cultivating learned optimism in such cases, such as through attribution retraining, where failure is attributed to effort and other circumstances rather than to one's abilities.
So today I'm going to share you or tell you about the limit to freedom and the politics of control, which is the subtopic of theory of freedom. Okay, in this subtopic, it tells you that you can't have more or maximum your freedom. You have to choose the one that benefits you and give you extremely meaningful life. Okay, for the next slide is freedom. Okay, Harper 1981 has stated that particularly in conceptualizing freedom as free choice or decision choice. Okay, in freedom as a free choice, you can choose or control whatever you want to do, whenever you want to go, and the others, as long as you like it or love it. Okay, freedom can be categorized as two, which is freedom from and freedom to. Freedom from is something that coercion or interferes. It means that you have done it or finished it. For example, we take that you don't like playing chess, but you have to play chess, which is interference or a coercion, so that you have freedom from playing chess, which is you don't like it. And freedom too is about free to do anything. It means that you are like to playing football, playing badminton, and you're free to do playing badminton and football in your leisure time. Okay, for the these two types of freedom could have quite distinct implication for an individual behavior and experience during leisure. It means that you can tell when you play in your leisure time, you can tell that it is freedom from or freedom to. Okay, next slide. Maximizing freedom. Maximizing freedom can be good or worse. It is based on situation. For Younger and Lepper 1999 state that Maximizing freedom through maximizing choice will lead to improved well-being. Okay, for an example, there is limit to the number of choices one can reasonably be able to consider at one time. For example, having to decide between numerous university courses, so that before you want to apply the university courses, you have to have an optimal choice. So what is more you like, what is more you interest in your university courses. So in this situation, it is good. Okay, for the worst maximizing freedom, it be negatively associated happiness, optimism, self-esteem, and life satisfaction, and positively associated with depression, perfectionism, and regret. For example, you like to travel during your leisure time, but you don't go travel and you play something that you don't like. It will be depressed or regret, and it will be not happy for you. So that maximizing freedom can be good or worse in based on every situation. Okay. Social psychologists have determined that beyond an optimal number, choices are experienced as burdensome. And of course, if we have more choices, it will be burden for us to choose to go to the right that we like and love to do. Okay, for the next slide, last slide, serious leisure activity such as some hobbies and amateur activity, allowing one a better sense of important objective, priority, and relationship with others. Okay, for example, we like to play a team sport like football, rugby. It have to we have to communicate to each other in the match with our teammate, so that it will be strengthening our relationship with others. The factor that keep people from participating in or enjoying recreation activity later in life may actually be beneficial and even life enhancing. If we play rugby just like now, I say that we play rugby, of course it will improve our skill and even life enhancing. Okay, last but not least, ignore the sometimes negative objective condition in people's life. Okay, we like to do playing chess, but the people say negative objective about playing chess. So just ignore them and do what you like and do what you happy.
Okay, now we talk about the summary for this topic. Generally, the needs for sense of freedom and control is thought to be important or common for all people. But however, there are theories that suggest the needs for freedom and control are various in strength and among people. Okay, for example of the theories is according to Berger in 1992, he proposed that the needs of control that actually is a personality trait. In other words, some of people may have a high need of control, while the others seems like this needs of control is much less important than the other people that need in high need of control. Okay, now we will continue with the question section. Okay, there are 3 questions. Okay, for the first one is, according to Neulinger in 1981, what is perceived freedom? Okay, I will repeat the question. According to Neulinger in 1981, what is perceived freedom? Second question, what is psychological reactance according to Graham in 1966? Okay, I will repeat the question. What is psychological reactance according to Graham in 1966? Okay, for the last question, maximization was negatively and positively associated with. Okay, I will repeat the question. Maximization was negatively and positively associated with. That's all question. Okay. May hope you all can answer the question. Thank you.